die, you lousy object. Oh, hey, I was just doing some stress testing on some software. And, I was thinking it might be nice to be able to pass parameters to test methods and have the framework loop through those parameter values pretty much automatically. And it turns out that that's what the data test method does when you couple it with the data row attribute. So let's take a look at that.
Okay, so let's take a look at the data test method attribute and why you might want to use that rather than the test method attribute. So we'll start off with a code under test in our dynamic demo solution, and we see here we've got an enum type, and we have a class which happens to be static, and that static class has a static method called mix. The fact that we're using enum and static classes and static methods is really of no consequence for our purposes here. It's really just a matter of having a method called mix in this case that takes some data. So let's consider how we might test this. So we'll go to our test project and we'll add a line of code that will allow us to make this test. Okay, so that will determine whether or not we can mix red and yellow paint and get orange paint. And we can run that. And we see that it passes. Okay, of course this is only one combination, so we're going to want to add some other ones. So one thing we might do is copy those lines and change the various values. So those are three possible mixings with their associated values, and we can run this code. And they all pass. But of course, as testers, we know that you really want to have one test that has one outcome. You don't want to mix things together like this, no pun intended. So we really should make those separate test methods. So that would look like this. And for this simple example, I'll give these test methods the very bad names of 1, 2, and 3. But we can run this. And everything does pass, but there's an awful lot of duplication here. And if I had any kind of algorithm associated with this test, any more than just a couple of lines of code, I would not want to duplicate that code. I would only want to enter it one time. Now I could make these non-test methods and then create a test method that executes those non-test methods in some sort of a loop, or otherwise walk through the data structure of all the paints that I want to mix and all the resultant colors. But again, that gets us away from having one test and one result. So that's where the data test method attribute comes in. So let's change this so that instead of having three methods or having one method that does multiple calls or multiple asserts, I just have one method and a set of data. So there's my data test method attribute, and then three data row attributes. And you'll notice that I've given these data row attributes parameters, and those parameters correspond to the parameters associated with the method. So now we're going to have a test method that takes parameters. And then instead of a constant value here, I would put my parameter name. And I don't need my other two test methods anymore, because when I run this one method, I can see that my result shows me that I actually had 4 tests pass. And you see the overall result, which is the test method without parameters, and then the other 3 sub-results, which are the test method with parameters. So effectively, I allowed the Microsoft unit test framework to iterate through a data structure for me indicated by my data row parameters. And that's the data test method attribute.
So that's the data test method attribute and the data row attribute. Kind of cool. Thanks for watching.